Welcome to all. Myself Vasudevan, M.Pharm, Assistant Professor in Department of Pharmaceutics, Sri Shanmuga College of Pharmacy, Sangagiri, Salem. Now discuss about the non-renal excretion. It is also known as the other than kidney involved the organs. The excretion process is called as the non-renal excretion. The non-excretion process involved the maximum biliary systems, respiratory system, intestine, sweat glands, and salivary gland and mammary glands. These are of the overall non-renal excretion. We are discussed one by one. The majorly the drug eliminated from the other than kidney, biliary excretion of the drug or endohepatic cycle. The production and the secretion of bile is active process. The active process. The second point is the bile secreted in the liver. Majorly the drug bile is secreted in the liver and stored in the gallbladder and released in the duodenum. This is the process of the biliary excretion of the drug. They are bile secreted in the liver and stored in a gallbladder and released the duodenum. The bile significantly helps the digestion and absorption of fats. Major of the fats is digestion and absorption is help of the bile, the bile acid. The secretion of bile is the capacity limited processes that get saturated. Some processes get saturated. They are drug concentration in bile less and drug concentration in plasma is higher and biliary clearance is very low and vice versa. These are of the overall biological excretion of the drug. They are based of the their bile and plasma ratio of the compound excreted bile and grouped. The group A, B, C. The bile plasma concentration about 1, more than 1 and less than 1. The example of the drug is the about 1 group A and about 1% of bile acid concentration. Example of the drug is sodium, potassium, chloride and glucose. Group B is more than 1 the bile salt and creatinine and bilirubin. And group C is the sucrose, inulin, phosphate, phospholipids. These are of the group C. Okay. The cycle, enterohepatic cycling of drugs. The phenomenon of drug is circulation between the intestine and the liver. That called as the enterohepatic cycle or circulation. Okay. This is the half time is increased of the drug. Major of the drug increase the half time in this part. The prolongation of the drug action is the cardiac glycosides, rifampicin, chlorpromazine, indomethacin. These all of the drugs is the travel from this area. And the routes of drug absorption, elimination and distribution and elimination process. The first the drug absorption in the oral administration, they are directly absorbed in the small intestine. The drug converted, some drugs are absorbed in the blood, some wastage drug is eliminated from the facial excretion. The drugs can move to the liver. The drugs they leave distribution to the tissues or urinary excretion. Some drugs are moved to the bile. Those bile acid to their bile excretion, they are attached to the small intestine. They are finally eliminated from the small intestine route. And the pulmonary excretion of the drug. The second process is the pulmonary excretion of the drug. The gaseous and volatile substance such as the general anesthetics, the halothane, and absorbed through the lungs by simple diffusion. The pulmonary blood flow and the rate of respiration and the solubility of the substance affected the pulmonary excretion. And another one is the alcohol, which has the high solubility in the blood and tissues are excreted slowly by the lungs. The example of the drugs is the general anesthetics, halothane, nitrous oxide, alcohol excreted slowly through the lungs. They are the overall pulmonary excretion of the drug. Another one of the other than renal route, it's involve the excretion through the saliva by the process passive diffusion. The pH of the salivary varies from the 5.8 to 8.4. The unionized lipid soluble drugs are excreted passively. The bitter taste is to be excreted. They are the weakly acid and weakly base. The formula for the Ra and Rb, Ra acid and Rb it's a base. There S divided by B, 1 plus 10 power of the pKh and pKa equal into F plasma. Over divided by 1 plus 10 into pH minus pKa into F salivary. These are the acid and base. The salivary cycling of the drug, there the drug directly absorption in the GIT. Some drugs eliminate the facial route. So the drugs which are move on to the blood circulation, the drugs are distribution and elimination. Some drugs are moving in the salivary glands. They are the finally the remaining of the drugs is moved to the GIT tract. They are emit the salivary glands. For example of the for weak acid ratio is found to be less than 1. For weak base ratio found than more than 1. Example of the drug is the sulfonamides and antibiotics and clonidine. These are of the overall mechanism of the salivary cycling of the drugs in this. And another route of drug elimination from other than renal, the mammillary excretion of the drug. The drug that's excreted in the milk entered the infant's feeding. Some newborn babies feed the mother to drug excreted from the milk. The pH range from the 6.4 to 7.6 and mean pH is the maximum 7. The unionized drug and lipid soluble drugs show the passive diffusion in the alveolar cells by the mammillary gland. Okay, the excretion of the drug milk is usually less than maximum of the drug usually less than 1%. The milk beers and acidic nature of the compared to the milk beers is also acidic nature as the compared to the plasma compared to the acidic nature. The drugs are weakly basic. Maximum drugs are weakly basic as drugs are natural greater than concentration in the milk. Okay, the example of the drugs is the chloramphenicol, diazepam, tetracycline. Some etc. drugs are also involved in the mammillary excretion of the drugs. Okay, drugs excretion in milk depends on the some factors involved. The first one is the pH partition behavior, the molecular weights and the lipid solubility and the degree of ionization. These are of the drug excretion in milk dependence. First one is effects. The effects is the some potent drugs may be induced toxicity in infants. Examples of the barbiturates, morphine, and ergotamine. These are of the some toxicity produced the infants. When the possible feeding mothers should avoid drugs is the medication is unavoidable. Some infants should be bottle feed. So this time is very careful and careful to feeding because some drugs affect the student some babies health. Another one excretion is the skin excretion of the drug. Skin like as the sweat glands, like is that it is the dependence on the pH partition hypothesis. The passively excreted through the skin, like as the sweat, urea derivatives, amines, heavy metals. Like as the example of the drug is the benzoic acid, salicylic acid, and alcohols. These are of the salivary glands excretion. Sweat glands excretion. And another one the excretion is the gastrointestinal excretion of the GI excretion takes the places when the drug administers through the parental route. It is undergoes the passive diffusion. The GIT also shows the absorption and the excretion of the drug is administration in orally. The stomach is the specific site of that shows the excretion water soluble. So the ionized form of drug is either weak or base. Okay, these are of the gastrointestinal excretion. Some drugs are involved in the gastrointestinal excretion, like as the nicotine, quinine, magnesium sulfate, streptomycin, neomycin, cholestyramine, etc. These are of the involved in the gastrointestinal excretion of the drugs. Okay, the overall summary of the excretion pathway, transport mechanism, and the drug excreted. Some first column is the excretory route, second column is the mechanism, and third column is the drug excreted. Which are the drugs eliminated from the route? The major route is the urine route, is the also known as the renal clearance. Other than urine, all of the considered as the non-renal route. So the first one is urine. Maximum the three mechanisms: glomerular filtration, active secretion, and active passive, and the reabsorption. The major of the drug free, hydrophily, unchanged drugs, metabolic, conjugated, molecular weight less than 500. The overall drugs is the eliminated from the urine route. Other than renal route is the bile, lung, saliva, milk, sweat, and intestine. The drug is the active secretion, passive diffusion process, active transport process. Some process are involved in the overall the drug is the free drugs, unionized drug, lipophilic drugs, some polar drugs, some non-polar drugs, some metabolic drugs conjugated. Overall that eliminated from the other than renal route. So overall, the summary of the excretion pathway and transport mechanism, these doctor. Okay, thank you. We have discussed the all the slide for the non-renal excretion route. We are move on another one topic. It's a new topic. Okay, thank you so much.